Welcome back to the It's Only Kids Football podcast. We're joined by one of the most respected voices in player development and coaching in the English game, Chris Ramsey, with a career spanning roles at QPR, Tottenham and the FA. Chris has worked across academy football, first team management and coach education, helping shape not just players but better coaches and environments. He's widely recognised for his work in developing young talent and championing more thoughtful, inclusive approaches to the game. Joining me to chat with Chris is my co-host and assistant manager, Mike Clark. In this episode, we'll dive into the realities of coaching in youth football, how to communicate effectively with young players and parents, and what it really takes to create the right environment for kids to learn, joy, and stay in the game. Chris, welcome to the pod, mate. Delighted to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me. It's I always enjoy talking with people like yourself about these sort of issues and situations.
Well, mate, you've got so many years of experience coaching every level, age group, every type of person. So you're the best person to draw on from your experience and knowledge. And one thing, like me and Mike were talking yesterday before we were getting ready for this, what would we talk to you about? And we were wondering, like, is man management, it sounds silly, but is man management a thing when you're coaching kids of like under 7s, under 8s, under 9s, under 10s? Like, maybe that's the wrong phrase, but obviously there's different types of personalities and children in a group. So is that a thing? Like, or is there just, do you just sort of coach the group?
No, it is. I mean, I'm a qualified primary school teacher, so I've worked at all the key stages, and man management is really a thing. You know, you can have one disruptive child in a class, and you're doing, I don't know, art or science or something like that. Next thing, there's paint all over the place or chemicals all over the place. So man management is really important, and keeping kids focused.
You know, a lot of coaches, I always think, I mean, I definitely made this mistake myself, and I know Mike will have done, is you're saying to the players, we want you to express yourself, play without fear, express yourself, be confident. But then when they make a mistake, you say something, so obviously that doesn't help them. So, like, when you want to build trust of a young player, when you want a young player to trust you and feel safe to express themselves and make mistakes, how do you do that? What techniques have you found have worked?
I think in general, in life, in most things, people will work harder at what they're good at and enjoy what they're good at. So find what they're good at and always try to revert to that as the default. You know, so if someone's good at running with it or something like that, try to make sure you put the right eggs in the right holes. So putting them in on the right parts of the pitch is important, especially as they get older. But as they get younger, you have to really just identify what you think they're good at, and try your best to put them in situations that they can excel with that. And if they're not good at something that's actually essential for them to be successful, you try and wrap it up in that.
Unfortunately for our boys, now that they're 9, they've already exceeded my level of knowledge of football. So they're probably telling me what to do more than I'm telling them.
Chris, we actually, a bit of a topic that we've had recently is having players having positions. Our feeling is that, like, so when they first started, we did rotate them in positions. We tried them in different stuff, and now they'll be playing under 10s next year. They've been playing since under 7s, and they do, one or two of them will, well, maybe more than that, will move in the game. But they kind of, so like let's say one's a centre back or one of the defenders in 7-a-side rather than centre back. That boy might play in centre mid, and we move him around like that. It's not, or like the striker might then play out wide. So they're kind of still in roles that suit their attributes, so defending, whatever, or getting around the pitch, or if they're attacking out wide or up front. And we kind of move them around like that. But generally, they do have the positions that they enjoy, their skill set suits, and it gives the team a bit of balance. Because obviously at our level, we're developing players, yes, but we're also trying to build a team that stays together, that is successful, and that they enjoy playing together. And obviously the parents want the kids to play in positions, they have fun, etc., etc. But we got a bit of backlash because we said that we were looking for a defender for our team, and lots of people were very upset with us, very upset that we had the audacity to want us. We didn't ask for any type of attributes. We just said we wanted someone who played in defence. What do you feel about positions or kids leaning towards a certain position? Like I say, our age group is under 9s coming into under 10, so that's where we're at. And we got a lot of people that are very upset by saying that.
I don't think that's a complete disaster. You're asking that. It's just depends how you word it. You could say that we currently have a space for a defensive-minded player. That's how I would have worded it. I just think it's how you word it. Because sometimes you do have some kids who, like Jaffa Tanga, who played for Tottenham and plays for Sheffield, played for Millwall, now plays for Sheffield United. He loved being a defender right from the start.
I mean, these were the discussions we were, we were having with some of the people online, or I was getting messages, and I was explaining that, okay, I put a defender, but I don't mean that kid's is now in prison, in defensive prison for the rest of his life. Like, he may move around, he might try different positions, but ultimately, we've found as well, like, the kids do have preferred positions. Like, if I said to the kid who's really good at attacking and scores goals, by the way, you're going to play in defence the whole time, his enjoyment is impacted. So he doesn't want to do that. Now, I know what you were saying before, like, you're the coach and sometimes you have to lead with like command and what you're trying to help them develop. But ultimately, we're trying to help them enjoy football, and they have certain positions that they prefer playing in, and they are what, as much as we don't want to talk about winning, success is connected to enjoyment and confidence. So if we put them in places where they don't build confidence and don't have success, then they are unhappy, and then they don't want to play the game. Now, there's obviously a balance to be had, and I totally understand what you're saying. But that was just kind of our thinking, and we just thought it was crazy that these people, everyone was so upset of us. Well, not everyone, that's a lie. A few people upset with us. And I was thinking to myself, you're the same people that would moan at me for not listening to the kids. So when I listen to the kids and play them in positions that they want, you're now moaning at me for that. Like, I can't win.
You just got to remember with parents, you can't win. Going into the discussion, you cannot win.
No, absolutely. One question we get all of the time, I mean, this is like the most common question we've had in all the time we've been doing this, is like coaching a mixed ability group. How do you, whenever you're in that situation, obviously I know that your main role has been coaching as your career has progressed as like elite level academy players, but when you've had to coach a very mixed ability group, how do you approach that? How do you challenge the good ones? How do you bring up the kids and make them feel confident, the less talented ones? It's a real tricky situation.
It's one of the hardest situations. It's also understanding that the continuum along what you're coaching, what you're doing, the continuum. So for argument's sake, if you've got some kids at one end of the continuum that can actually just strike the ball backwards and forwards, give them as many touches as they want in order to be successful. So as you go up the continuum, you might be giving the kids right at the other end one touch. And you might be saying, right, you know what, before you get it, here's a movement, have a movement before you pass it. You might say have a movement and a step over before you pass it with the outside of your foot. So you've got to understand how complex you can make that continuum and how easy you can make it. So when the kids are doing it, they're all doing the same thing, but some people are doing it just taking 2 touch and passing it. Some kids are doing it on 1 touch. Some kids are doing it at slightly different distance. So as long as you understand the complexities along the continuum, then you're going to be able to engage everybody in the same practice. And also having more than one coach is really important when you've got a mixability group. Really, really important. Because if you're a single coach and you've got 20 kids and the continuum's too big, you're not going to be able to cover everybody. So therefore, either you're going to have apathy one end with the kids, it's too easy, and you're going to have disgruntlement on the other end with the kids that where it's too hard. So that mixed ability group, one of the things, it's a really good question, is because people always say, right, what we're going to do, put the best with the best. And I've always said this, and I disagree with it. There's times for that to happen, right? But a silver medalist usually is the one who comes up on top, because they're always fighting to get to the gold medalist. The gold medalists sometimes fall off because they've always had smoke around them, and sometimes that they hit a ceiling, and they don't push themselves. So you can have a gold medalist with a silver medalist. You can have a silver medalist with a bronze. You can have a bronze with a wooden, but you can't have a wooden with a gold, because it's too big. It's too big, and no one's going to get anything out of it. So I'll give you an example. So Ryan Mason, when he played for Tottenham, in the youth teams or the reserve teams, he might play with Harry Kane. Harry Kane comes short. Ryan plays it in behind. They have a discussion. Ryan says to him, when I see that when you see this cue, spin. Ryan learns it. Years later, or a couple of years later, you might have Harry Winks playing with Harry Kane. Harry Winks just plays it short. Harry Kane can go and say to him, hold on a minute, when I come short, I'm going to spin this time. So Harry Winks now learns that. Now, if you never ever work with people that are better than you, you're never going to learn that. All you're ever going to learn is to be a wooden spoonist, because you're only working with people that are at that level. So what can they teach you? Or what are you aspiring to? So what you do is you validate a low bar. You validate a low bar because you're always successful at a low bar. So what we want to avoid is the ceiling of the gold medalist, early gold medalist. We want to avoid that. But you also want to avoid the ceiling of a low bar at the players that are not good enough, and make sure that in between that continuum, there's always a level that they can reach to. So if they can't reach, a woodenist can't really reach a gold medalist straight away. You want to make sure that they go through the incremental steps at their level or their capability. So it's really important that mix it. That's where actually as a coach you learn the most. So I learned the most in football in the community. You know, how to work with a group, how to motivate a group of different levels. Now, whether I was good at it or not, but I was immersed in it, which allowed me to work with different abilities.
That's brilliant, Chris. I've actually never heard it articulated in that way, because we always talk about mixed ability and finding your right levels. And I've always thought of that as your gold medalist with your gold, and your silvers with your silvers, and your bronze with your bronze. But actually, what you're saying there makes total sense. Yeah, you don't want the delta to be too great between the abilities, but at the same time, why wouldn't you put a bronze with a silver and allow them, especially at the younger ages, allow them the opportunity to improve with those slightly better players, and then you're bringing everyone up, and that's the same with every one of those different levels. So I think that'll really hit home with a lot of people. And what tends to happen is, the kids know, right? They know what level they're at, so that they're not stupid. They understand that kid's better, but they do want to be. They want to play with the better kids. They want to play in the best teams that they can possibly be in. But I think a lot of the time it does come down to the parents, and sometimes the delusion of parents around what level their kids are. Maybe they're a bronze kid, but in their parents' eyes they're a gold, and they're trying to push them into that world. And it's not necessarily right for those kids. And I'm sure you see this, all the time even at the elite of the elite.
Yeah.
How do you communicate that with parents? How do you? I know you said you can never win with parents, right? So maybe a loaded question, but it's something that we also get time and time again around these mixed ability questions. Is dealing with the parents and being realistic with them without putting down the child's ability.
I think sometimes it's really it is the hardest thing, because no matter what evidence you show them, they're always comparing with other kids. Well, he didn't score, and this person didn't tackle. But because you're the coach, you know the context. of how the kids perform, the context. And dealing with parents, one of the things is actually giving the kids, I wouldn't say gold, but I would say challenge them to be good at what they're good at, and also challenge them to improve on something that is going to help them. And giving the parents that sort of thing and say, look, today we're asking him, to was a 1v1. Can he go at this person using this skill or that skill or something that he brought to the party? And so they actually looking at objectively at what you've asked that player to do, and therefore they can only be honest with themselves or not. So one of the things I did with parents before is I had that the player cam, when you just look at a player for 2 minutes, they used to do it on Sky, where that player's just moving to. And I had one of Steven Gerrard, and I kept it, and I'd showed him and Steven Gerrard for like 2 minutes, and he's not even getting the ball. He's running in the box. It's a poor cross. He's running back into shape. He's going short to receive it. He doesn't get it. It goes somewhere else. So what I used to say to the parents is, look, well, you look at a top class player, and when you keep saying, oh, my little Johnny doesn't get the ball, if you look at one player, it will seem like they never get the ball, because the game's over, whatever, 90 minutes or 60 minutes if you're kids or whatever. In that time, you've got 10 other players on the pitch who are only ever on the ball for a minute to 2 minutes through the whole game. So if you're only looking at your son, you're only going to ever see them touch the ball for a minute max. So the other 80, if it's a 60-minute game, the other 57 or 59 minutes, they're not touching the ball. They're either in team function, or that's what they are. They're just in team function, which is either receiving the ball, going to receive the ball, or supporting the defense by squeezing over or squeezing up. So I used to do that all the time. They actually couldn't believe it. And then the other thing I did to complement that was Gareth Bale had scored a hat-trick one weekend, and I condensed all his touches into 1-2 minutes, minute and a half, all his touches. So I said, this guy scored a hat-trick in the Premier League, and I'm going to show you his whole game, his whole technical game. And it was about a minute and a half. And they were like, yeah, all right, where's the no? I said, that is all he touches the ball in a game. So if you put that with what I showed you with the Steve Gerrard one, when you're watching your son, that's why you think they never touch the ball, because they don't.
Such a good point.
Quick break. Before we dive back into the episode, we want to take a moment to help you level up your coaching game with the help of Football DNA, the ultimate coaching platform that's been a game changer for us. What do we love about it? It's super easy to use, saves us loads of time, and best of all, it doesn't just show you how to set up a practice, it teaches you how to coach it properly. And that's the key. The sessions are put together by top level coaches. We're talking first team staff at clubs like Celtic, Crystal Palace and West Ham. Proper pedigree. You get videos, diagrams, full explanations, downloadable PDFs, and if you need it, a full 36-week training plan tailored to the age group you are coaching. Our lads have loved the sessions. It's made our lives easier, improved our coaching, and taught us loads. Now we genuinely look forward to training and developing our players. Check it out at footballdna.co.uk. That's footballdna.co.uk, or you can download the app. Just search Football DNA. Trust us now and you'll thank us later. When you talked about sort of Harry Kane giving that advice to Ryan Mason or Harry Winks, or like him saying, when I do this movement, this is what I want you to do. Obviously, they have to be relatively aligned in ability, but I thought it was really interesting, because then does Harry Kane become a better player because he is learning to impact the players around him? He's having to think about why he does something so that he can explain it to another person. So he is now learning how to understand the game so that he can explain it to someone else. And then I don't know if you remember, like relatively recently, Thierry Henry did it as a clip in a studio show where he said the best players impact the players around them. It's not just about kind of whether they score, assist, etc., whatever. It's about, do you make the players around you better with what you do? And when you were talking about that Harry Kane example, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I bet he must become a better player by having to do that.
100%. And don't forget, when you're dealing with kids, eventually certain things, who do they learn better off? You try explaining a video game to a kid. You have a kid and you try explaining how to do it to a kid. Who do they learn better off? They will learn it in 2 minutes off each other. So if you can pass your message through a kid to another kid, it will get there much quicker, much quicker. So that's how I look at it. So sometimes, dealing, even last week when I was dealing with, we had the camps, the England camps, some of the top players that you'll see them talking to another player, and you're hoping that their message gets through to that kid. I think the language they use, the comfort that they have with each other, the ability to disagree and become friends again. That's important, really important. Disagreeing and reasoning, becoming friends again, really important. So it is just different ways of getting the message over.
And then from a coach's point of view, you just take that Harry Kane example, right? Has he been coached to almost coach his teammates, or is that just a natural ability? Like when you've got those players that can, and it doesn't have to be Harry Kane level, right? You're looking at our team, you've got those natural almost leaders on the pitch. As a coach, are you coaching them in a way to bring that out with them, or to enhance their leadership abilities, or are you coaching other kids as well to try and step up to that level? How do you coach that? And it's probably more communication question.
I think you encourage them. You encourage them to encourage the other kids. So what you'll find is initially when kids are failing, unless you've got a very special group, the kid who's failing will be not vilified, but it's sort of almost, it's obvious. And what you have to do is look for the people that are going to be empathetic towards the kid who's failing, or not succeeding in what you've asked them to do. And you look for different characters, as you would do in a classroom. In a classroom, there's always kids who are the life and soul of the party. And there's always the kid who, with the top button done up, who does everything right all the time. And you can almost rely on them to help others in the class. So it's also looking at the players that are excelling, had got those leadership skills that you think that help the other kids. I think encouraging kids to help others is a really important thing, especially when you're dealing with at your level where it's grassroots and they're volunteering to come and they want to be there. I think that's really good.
And I don't know why it's triggered in my mind, but I don't think I've ever asked this question really, because you look at the difference between grassroots and academy football, right? And there's lots of differences, but lots of similarities. And one of the differences that I might be wrong here, but is we're building this team to try and last for the long term, right? And we want them to stay together as long as possible. They're at that level where they're super good. They might get picked up in the future, but and if they do, then fantastic. If not, then I feel like they're at that certain ability where they might actually stay together if we can create a positive environment for them moving forward. But one of the main reasons that they might want to do that themselves is that we do a lot of fun activities outside of football. We'll live very close to each other, which helps, which is the same with most grassroots teams. But we do fun activities. We've got our end of year, end of season awards coming up. We're going to do all of that and make it as fun as possible. Does that happen at academy football? Do they do activities outside of football? And you being a coach, do you sort that out, or is that more a parent's thing? How does that work?
I think it's important to do that. Really important to do that, because enjoyment is I think the fundamental part of it, and the kids need to look forward to going there, not only for football. At some clubs they do, but a lot of the times clubs go on tours, so going to Belgium, France, Spain, stuff like that. That becomes sort of almost their out of football activity, because the parents usually go as well. So getting the time to do it is something that, you know, has to be carefully planned, but also doing things that are actually not football related. So sometimes we would take them to the theatre, you know, so and that's not patronizing the kids that probably never get that opportunity, but everyone's in a different economic situation. So we take them to things like that. But I don't think clubs get enough time based on how much football work they do to do it on a regular basis. But it is something that we would do with certain groups. But what you'll find a lot, though, is the parents organise a lot of it. So you actually don't have to do it as a club, because if you have, I don't know, 20 kids in a club or in an age group, you know, there's going to be at least 10 birthday parties in that, of which probably you have your core group that traveling together and stuff like that, of which I would imagine each kid would probably go to at least 5 birthday parties a year in a thing. So clubs don't always have to do that. But I think it's important. I do think it's important.
Build those friendships, build that positive environment. I think we certainly believe that that's the case. And what my question was, in terms of like the blueprint for building a positive, progressive environment for kids on the pitch and in the coaching sessions, what does that look like? How do you create that? If you were to, you know, write a rule book on this is exactly how you create the most positive experience for kids at any levels of football, what's the type of things that you'd be putting in that blueprint?
This is a little bit of theory now. I think it recalls zone of proximal development, right? It's by Vygotsky, and it's understanding about basically it's like, the way I put it, it's like growing in comfort zone. So for argument's sake, what we generally do is we teach kids at the highest level that we can, because we want to prove how good a coach we are. So I always think, you know, start from the continuum of what can they do, and then where do you want them to go, and how can you incrementally take them there, so that their success is incremental rather than at the speed that, one, they can't keep up with, or two, it can't be sustained. So it's finding their zone of proximal development. What are they good at, and how can I scaffold the next part of their learning where they can be successful to grab onto it. So for argument's sake, if we look at, say, we talk about doing a Cruyff turn, what normally is people will start, they'll just tell them to do the turn. They don't understand. They might have seen it before, but they don't actually know the mechanics of the turn. They don't actually understand where your foot is, why you do it, where's the despise, where your arm goes, how you bend your knees. Now the top kids will. So as soon as they're good at it, then you add different complexities. It might be skills, it might be a pass at the end of it, it might be whatever. But the kids that don't understand it or are not good at it, you need to break it down biomechanically for them so that they can understand it. So that's where they're at. Do you understand that they're only at the level of bending their leg and putting the other leg over the ball? Do you understand that as a coach? And that in itself is a session for them. That part of the session is a session for them. So if they succeed at that part of the skill, then that's there to be complimented, because they've succeeded at that part of the skill. Now, if you don't understand where they are, or the coach doesn't understand where they are within the task, then you have a problem. So for me, it's understanding where they are in any task, how good they are in any task, and where do you need to actually help them, to actually coach them. So even if you look at it, say, for argument's sake, long passing, you know, people just let them pass the ball. They just let them kick it. There's no direction. There's no drop it in with 1 bounce, 2 bounce, you know, no bounce, you know. So as soon as they start getting to the level where they can actually get the ball off the floor, you know, I see loads of young coaches now, and they probably couldn't coach a kid how to play a tip pass. They couldn't coach it. They couldn't tell them about bending their knees, getting the foot under the ball or hitting the back of the ball, the direction, about how they feel it in with a bit of backspin if need to. They can't coach that. So understanding what they need to learn is, rather than what you want them to learn, is more important than anything.
I like that. What they need to learn as opposed to what you want them to learn.
Exactly. So they don't, coaches now, just a lot of iPad coaches, lot of tactics have gone through the roof, and people hide behind tactics, especially with young kids. You know, they have three in midfield, so we had a diamond, and they played a low block. So just let the kids get on with it and solve it themselves to start with.
Quick one for the coaches and volunteers listening. If you're sorting kits for a grassroots team, you'll know the pain. It's never as simple as it should be. That's exactly why Discount Football Kits exists. They supply quality football kits at prices that actually work for grassroots clubs. No nonsense, no hard sell, just reliable team wear that turns up on time and looks the part on match day. From full team kits to training wear for growing squads, everything's built to make your life easier. If you're tired of overpaying or overthinking kits, head to discountfootballkits.com and get your team sorted today. Go Cardless makes collecting payments simple with automatic direct debit. Membership fees come in on time every month without watching parents dig through their pockets only to find a crisp packet or race into the cash point while you wait in the rain. There's no more, I'll give it to you next week. You can just drop a link into your WhatsApp group and bingo. Payments are sorted. It handles the admin too, automatically keeping track of who's paid, what's outstanding, and retrying any payments that didn't go through, helping your club keep a steady cash flow for pitch hire, kits, and equipment. You can even pause or adjust payments when families need flexibility, keeping your club supportive and inclusive. Go Cardless takes care of the money so you can focus on running great sessions and growing your club. The thing is, Chris, is what happens is parents start getting mental and start thinking that, you know, well, have you seen what so-and-so's doing over there? They're doing a tactical session, and you're like, well, look, we've spoke to loads and loads of coaches and experts doing this, and like one, I can't remember who it was, but they said to us, like, at the end of the game, ask the kid what the tactical plan was. So if you told them one at the start, then at the end, ask them what it was. They don't remember, and all this sort of instruction and stuff that you're giving them, they won't remember. Like we had a coach on who talked about coaching principles, not patterns. So rather than like, when this person does this, obviously, I know that as they get older and their level of ability, you can expand into that stuff. But like, right, when he goes here, you do this, and then we want you to go there, and that you're like, yeah, but what if that doesn't happen in the game? What does the kid do then? If the chaos changes in front of them, well, then what do they choose to do? So
100%.
we try to coach. We create a game where those scenarios might happen, so that they can make a choice in that situation as to how they do it. And that is what we try to do. Not that we're particularly any good at it, but I think having that clarity and understanding that actually I'm not doing this wrong. This is what I think a lot of grassroots coaches should focus on. It's not, are you the best coach ever? Are you amazing at it? You know, does everyone think your session is amazing? You just need to know, you need the reassurance that you're not doing it wrong, and that you've got a generally sort of good idea. And as long as you create a situation, I think if it's not too complicated, so you can coach it, because the more complicated you make it, the less they understand it. So try to keep it relatively simple and create situations where they have to make choices for themselves. So that is, by the way, the biggest mistake. Me and Mike will say this, and when I first started under sevens, I'm like, the sessions I would do were mental. They were mental. The kids were like, what is going on here? Like, what is this geezer talking about? And then as I've progressed a bit, I've simplified it much more. And another thing, you know, that we did was, I felt every week had to be different when I started. We got to do a different session. The parents are watching. We got to do different drills. It needs to be different. And actually, what I learned, the kids don't understand anything if you only do it once. And actually, we now work on we do a 3-week cycle. So we have a topic and we coach it for 3 weeks, the same drills. And also, what helps with that is that when I turn up on week 2 and 3, they actually know what the drill is, and I don't have to spend half an hour explaining it. And then you can get more done. And these are like real common mistakes that I think grassroots coaches make. And yeah, like I'd be interested to know, like, what your thoughts are on getting the best out of a session, because I felt that one, I used to overcomplicate and I'd spend so much time talking, Chris. I'd be like, I want to, you know, I'm trying to overload them with all this information. They ain't got a clue what's going on. Like, so if you were talking to grassroots coaches now, what would you tell them? How do they get the best out of a training session?
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, you've learned now, haven't you? So imagine how you've
Yeah.
learned. It's the same for them. You've learned what was good, and I think that is you've hit the nail on the head. Keep changing the sessions. Why would you keep changing the sessions when they? Because when you do an hour session, so I'm going to do a session tonight for the Survey coaches. It's not for the players, thankfully. But when the players generally understand the session in the last 10 minutes, you know, or when you go, yeah, he runs there, but he runs back there and he spins there, and then that goal's there, and then now you're out, now you're in. If you just once at the end of it, then you can ask them what did they learn. They'll probably tell you straight away. But if you don't repeat it, how is that ever going to be anchored? But what you do is you do something completely new the next week, and they've got. So what happens by the end of 3 or 4 weeks, they've probably got an hour's worth of understanding. Whereas if you do something and you repeat it, and then for you, what you need to learn or do, or any coach needs to learn and do, is how do you evolve the same session to be more challenging? So you're not doing exactly the same thing. So if you're doing the same thing and they're not understanding it or they're not mastering it, then you might keep it in the same guise, but it's going to be people in that session that probably need a bit of tweaking so that they're more challenged, and also there's going to be people down the other end of the spectrum that just probably need to stay where they are, so they actually excel at that level. So your job is to understand. I call it coaching meze. Your job is to understand what dish to bring out next. You know what's going to happen next. Do people stay on their starters in that, or are they now on the flaming chicken that's coming out? You know, but you're in the same meal. You know, so it's meze. You know, what's the next thing? The next thing of the same meal. So it's really important to understand how you can make the session, how you can dial it up and dial it down. So grassroots coaches, and also stop looking at Sky and people with these big graphics and this person ran here and he dropped in there, and stop looking at that, because the kids are not at that level. You know, you wouldn't take your 9-year-old into a university lecture on trigonometry and sitting them at the back of the lecture theatre with their book, you know, when they've got cubes or when they've got whatever they're doing. You wouldn't do that. So that is technically what they're doing when they're talking about, well, this person wouldn't have done that, and you know, and Mbappe did this and that and the other. Now you can inspire the kids to do the tricks and that they can see on YouTube, but you can also you can't think that they're going to be top level at the play that top level people are doing it, that are on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week. People always say, oh, yeah, they would have done that and they would have done that, but they wouldn't have done it when they were 9. They're doing it now after 15 years of practicing it. So that's why I always talk about growing their comfort zone. So always start off with things where they're comfortable doing. Always go back to success. You know, and also as a coach, experiment yourself, because at the end of the session, I always say to all the coaches I've worked with, you've always got the sweets at the end, which is either shooting or a small-sided game. You've always got that. So how bad your first part of your session was, if you put the sweets in, they'll forget that you tried to do it and overlap from inside to in, near post run. You know what I mean? They'll forget that. They'll forget that. So you've always got the sweets. Always put time. Always have a section for the sweets at the end if you're trying something new.
I've had many disastrous sessions over the 3 years I've been doing it, Chris. But what I used to do is my ego wouldn't want to let me let go of what was going wrong. So I'd almost try to force it. Like, I'm going to keep doing this until you get it right. Yeah. But then the other day, a session wasn't going well. And I just was like, right, this is going wrong. I'm just going to stop. We're going to do a different drill. Like I couldn't. They were asking me questions. The reality was they were asking me questions that I didn't have the answers to, and the confusion was just like messing the drill up. So I just went, right, we move on to the next thing. Let's just do something different.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
when I started out, I don't think I would have done that. I would have been like, no, we're gonna do this until we get it right. And when you've only got an hour, sometimes you have just got to have the humility to say, this ain't working. Let's just do something different. And I've
That's good
definitely
coaching.
felt, I said to you, yeah, but that's after 3 years of like messing up so many sessions, Chris, that I finally realized that that's what you have to do. And I was saying this to you I've learned so much about coaching from doing it, in the sense that I used to think it was who can put on the best drill, who can teach them this, who can teach them that. What I actually realized was coaching is communication, and who is the best communicator, who gets it across and who gets the most out of the session, not who has the most complicated drill that looks really slick and amazing. And quite often that isn't what happens. It's just, do they come away having learned something? Have they had fun? And have you got the most time with the ball, rather than spending 20 minutes trying to explain a drill that they don't understand, and that I don't understand? So when they start asking me questions, I don't know the answers. I was like, well, Pep Guardiola did this for Man City. Surely it works for this lot.
Exactly. Top level players.
Yeah, and exactly. So I've really learned lots like that. But you've been coaching for a long time, so many lessons that you've learned. But like, what do you think? What have you improved at? I'd love to know, like, what do you think you were doing wrong when you first started coaching, all of the way to now? What have you got good at? What are the lessons you've learned as a coach and a person?
I've done all the mistakes that everyone's done. A different session all the time, getting annoyed because they don't understand what I'm saying, and sometimes as an ex-player, it's not always good as well, because you think, well, why can't you just do that? And that's why a lot of top level players end up not, in the past, weren't good coaches, because they couldn't understand why people couldn't do what they did. So understanding where the kids are, I mean, I think learning a lot more about education has helped me to understand how players learn, and understanding what they need to do. So when you're working with elite players, you're saying, right, if you are a centre half and you can't head it, you're not going to be one. It's just as simple as that. There's no fluffiness about it. So understanding what they need to do. So if I was working with young kids now, where I used to work with the under-9s, we'd work on defending, stopping the turn, getting down low, poking it, because winning the ball back is what you want. You want the ball back so you can play more, don't you? You know what I mean? So first and foremost, at the beginning, you look at winning the ball back is just a free-for-all. It's an eat and wall game, isn't it? Everybody's just bundles into the corner, people attacking. So you don't really have to teach tackling when they're really young. But as they get older and there's more, which is bigger, and there's you would get more 1v1s, understanding how to win the ball back is important. Understanding concepts of defending is important. I think we leave that too late. So these are things that I've learned over the, because a lot of my teams, that when they play the good movement, fancy down football, people think we don't teach defending. We do, because there's a career in defending. Half of the game is defending. So there's a career in that. So one of the things that when I started working with even more elite players was thinking about, hold on a minute, you haven't just got forwards on, or you just haven't got people that look pretty in a drill. You do have to do the other side of the game. So understanding how to bring that out in players was really important, and fair, more to the point, fair, because what you're asking people to do things that they're not suited to do, when you have got the skill set to teach them how to enhance the things that they're good at. So that level of understanding, the yin and yang of training, was the thing that I think I improved at the most, and mostly when I was at Tottenham.
That was the one good thing to come out of Tottenham then, I think.
We're Arsenal fans, Chris.
I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm
There we go.
I'm a massive Arsenal. Well, I shouldn't say that on this, should I? Yeah, well, I grew up in Holloway. I grew up right near the station. But I love Tottenham. I love Tottenham. I do love Tottenham, but I'm an Arsenal fan.
Just on that defending point, I think I've seen you speak on with our good friends at Curva Coaching, who we know really well, and I heard you talking about the kind of art of defending and the different types of tackling. You know, interceptions, getting down low, poking it, and I showed my son some clips and let him listen to a few bits. And like I said, he's 9 years old, but I genuinely think that started to hit home. It's like when. And again, it's down to us as coaches, as parents. You just say, get on the pitch and smash them. You know, get that ball back, give everything, just get that ball. But you're not actually teaching them how to tackle or what. You know, most of the tacklings aren't slide tackles, right? Like you said, that's your last resort type tackle.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the time we see kids just fly in slide tackling, and the other kids just nipped around them because they haven't understood just yet that's not the right type of tackle. I thought that was genuinely excellent, and I think anyone else listening should definitely hear those clips. But I don't know if you had any other points to mention around that art of tackling that you think our audience would be benefiting from hearing.
I think for like in grassroots football, you stand like you're quite a good team. So you come up against good teams. So you're looking at saying, right, if someone's at this age, speed is really important for kids. It's not important if you haven't got it, but what I'm saying is it makes a difference in games. The fast kids make a difference in games. So teaching kids I won't say the art of war, but the art of the battle. So if he's really fast, what are you going to do? So are you going to go close to him so he can't turn and run at you? Or if you think he's not very skillful, what are you going to do? Can you touch him so that he thinks you're there and then drop off? You know, just little cat and mouse games that they can play with their opponent. So you touch him and he thinks you're there and he sets the ball and you've already dropped off. So now when they play it behind, you're already there. So can they get cat and mouse, ascertain quickly what how good their opponent is or what their opponent's like, and don't always meet the opponent with fire. Meet them with what they've got, what they can offer against what they can offer. So if someone is big and strong, you're not going to win the battle in the fight. How do you win that battle? And then teaching them little things like that will take them a long way into maximizing what they're good at. I always think you always have to go back to what strength have you got in any situation to combat another strength? And then what situation have you got in any situation to overcome the opponent? So if you think that opponent is slow, so what's your touch like? How do you entice them in to knock it past them to maximize your speed? So can you be level? If you're level with them, you're going to beat them. They've got to do a half turn, and you're running forward. If they're too fast for you, you can be a yard behind, so that when they knock it past you, you can match their speed. All these things, people think, God, that's too heavy coaching, but it's not if you do it in a way that the kids can absorb it. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I go back to education. You know, literature is literature. You have 9-year-old literature and you have Shakespeare. You know, so where along the continuum are you teaching the player that's in front of you? Now, don't get me wrong, your 9-year-old would actually be more at, I don't know, book 5 than someone who's 14 who's actually not talented. So it's a capability process rather than an age process. What are they capable of? You know, you look at Max Dowman at the moment, he's playing in the first team. So he's actually a schoolboy. If you go back to education, he's actually a sixth former at university. He's finished, you know, he's doing a degree now, but he's capable of doing that. You know, you get proteges, don't they? You get people that 10-year-olds playing with a philharmonic orchestra, they're playing the flute or the drums or whatever they're playing, but they're capable of doing it. So you're not going to leave them in the class playing the recorder when they can play the flute at the Albert Hall. You know, you have to look where that person is, you know.
If you're involved in running a grassroots football club, the football part is easy. It's the admin that takes over your evenings, weekends, and sometimes your sanity. We're excited to partner with Love Admin, the super simple club management platform designed to take all that admin stress off your plate. Whether you're managing a youth team, a community club, or a full academy, Love Admin helps you run things smoothly without drowning in spreadsheets, WhatsApp groups, and late night payment chases. Love Admin handles memberships and registrations, automatically collects payments on time without you having to chase anyone, keeps all your messages to players, parents, coaches, and volunteers in one place, helps you organise volunteers, and gives you clear reports so you always know what's happening across your club. If your club's been saying there has to be a better way to run this, there is. It's Love Admin. I think listening to you, Chris, is you're making defending sound exciting, and you're talking about skills, like actual skills. And this is the thing, Mike was right. When we talk about defending to kids, it's all just smash him, get stuck in, blah, 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 blah. That's not that, well, to some, that is kind of exciting in some ways, but it doesn't feel like a skill. It doesn't feel like we're excited about it. But the way you're talking about defending, it's like now I'm learning something, like there's an art to this. It isn't just tackle, win, smash someone, kick the ball, whatever. You're making it sound like it's something interesting and exciting to learn. And I actually think that's something that I'll take from this conversation when I talk to them, is maybe I'm dumbing it down from too much and actually talking about the intricacies of like little tricks and little ways that you can beat your opponent, almost a bit like a video game. Like, how would you, imagine this is a video game. Yeah. What would what little things would you like to do how would you beat your opponent? Can you try this move? This is maybe your little special move, is like trying to nick in and step in and win the ball by reading the game. And that actually, that is a really interesting point that I'd never really thought of. But the reason you came into my mind a couple of days ago is I was on the Football DNA app, and you've got some drills on there now, because we use that. That's how I get a lot of my sessions on the Football DNA app. Maybe we'll try some of yours tomorrow. We've got a training session tomorrow. What sort of stuff have you got on there for any coaches that are listening that you might use that app? What would they get from your drills on there?
Was it the one on spinning?
Yes, there was one. The one I was looking at was where you're in the sort of center circle with a group of players, and they were doing passing, and how to move, how to make space for the pass, receiving it.
Yeah, I think physical literacy, has gone out of PE at schools, and I think actual people moving, how people move, how they spin, their foot patterns. I don't think people put a lot of attention onto that, and they don't realise that this is the actual reason you receive the ball in the way that you receive it. So I don't think that one, coaches pay attention to it. Two, I don't think kids know how to use their foot patterns to actually receive the ball, or even actually to defend or block. And I think that when it's even like hooks, right? So I work a lot on hooks, because if you can't hook it, you can't kick. So the better you hook it, the more your body tells you how many steps you take onto the next pass. So most times when people receive the ball, they always have to beat somebody. So movement to spin, or movement to move their opponent, is really important to receive it. So most kids get the ball in a combative situation. So people will say, get free. But there's no free. There's still 10 versus 10 on the pitch. So all you've got is a bit of space. You're never ever going to be completely free in a match unless the other team's negligent, or you've drawn them completely over to one side of the pitch, and yet someone's on completely the other side of the pitch. You switch the ball quickly to that plan. So those little 2-3 yards that you can get to get the ball in a comfortable situation are really important. So there's a balance between teaching kids to just be in the melee and get out with it and work your way out of it. But also, as they want to get better, there's also a place for receiving it where you can do the most damage with the ability that you've got. So that's what I'm looking at that. I'm saying, right, how can you get it where you're actually going to terrify the opponent when you're attacking them, because you're placed up, you've received it on your furthest spot, or you received it on your nearest spot, whatever it may be. How can you be in a position where the first time you receive it, you're not just beating somebody, and then you're making your decision. So that's why a lot of the stuff that I do, people think, "Cool, is that it?" And I say, "Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the game." So teach the game. Don't just teach what looks nice. Teach what actually happens. So if you will see lots of my sessions, they're always very messy, very playgroundy type situation. But that's the real skill as a coach.
When I watched that drill, I was like, you were giving, there wasn't loads of restrictions. And what you could see was the players were then trying to work it out for themselves. So you're saying we're moving in this space, but you're kind of leaving it. Well, you're giving them guidelines, right? But you're like, but I want you to move how you move, or you work it out. And I think that's again, that's like coaching a principle, right? You're like, you need to work it out. Yeah. But I'm gonna create an environment for you to work it out. But this is what I want you to think about. And that was what I was thinking when I was watching that session.
But all my sessions always start off, we call them the 75s. Harry Kane will talk about it, Eze will talk about it, Ilias Chair will talk about it, Stephen Corker. We always work on the 75s are basic passes. So it'll be 25 on one foot, 25 on another foot, and 25 in between. That's just I just called it that from when I first started, because I thought, right, what's the thing? Why do people lose games? Why is there turnovers? Why is there counterattacks? Based on basic passing. So all the teams you see, good possession teams, that most of their passing is basic side foot passing. So to me, all the passes you work on, they're the ones you should work on the most, because most footballers in the league are, especially if you go down lower, most footballers are basic side foot Charlies who are fit and make good decisions. That is what footballer is. Most of them not Ronaldos and Messi's. Most are like that. So what I'm looking at is, how good can you be good at the basics, and let's then build on the basics. It's pointless being good at around the world when you can't even juggle. So let's get the basics right first, and then we can do all the other stuff that happens. So that's why when they're passing the ball, so always lead back to success. That's not going to break down. So they're going to be successful every time they pass it. They're successful. This is a basic pass. So the movement then doesn't become something that throw your arms in the air. I can't get this, because it's just, as soon as they can't get it, you've got an opportunity to compliment them on the pass. You've got an opportunity to push them on the pass. So if they're not concentrating, it's bobbling, you can say, no, just get your head over the ball, just hit the back of the ball. You can talk to them, and then so to me, I always feel like not giving toxic positivity, where what you're doing is just complimenting and just walking onto the pitch. I hate that. But what you're doing is you're giving yourself opportunities to compliment on something that's actually true. So if they're trying to do the spin and it's not working, you can compliment them on the intention. But if they're good at it and they're not doing it properly, then you've got an opportunity to set an example to the group by making sure that I wouldn't say having a go, but you're actually chastising the best player, because so they can see, hold on a minute, even he's getting told he's not spinning or he's not passing. So you're working all along continuums all the time, whether they're top pros or whether they're grassroots. But always, like a side foot pass always gives them an opportunity. It gives you an opportunity to give them a sweep. Always gives you an opportunity to say, well done, good pass. Always gives you that opportunity. So you have to, especially with grassroots coaches, kids don't want to be patronised all the time. And you've got good players, setting a low bar is not good, because what you're doing is they're not going to get better. But setting a bar too high doesn't allow them to scaffold onto the next thing. So you have to know, what is the next thing? What is the next thing? So if we used to do side foot passing to start with, is that's the level of success. They should just go through that. And when you're talking about they just do the drills now because you've put an environment where they understand what they're supposed to do. Then they're self motivated. They're teaching each other. They're correcting the drill themselves. So that shows understanding. But then, what is your next dish? coming out of the kitchen to add onto it. You're not bringing a great big dish out. You're adding something onto it to keep their mind stimulated for the next thing.
No, that makes sense. Absolutely. Now I need to think about that. What's my dish tomorrow? I better have a think tonight, Chris. We're just gonna
But
ask.
make sure your dish is still from the same menu, though. It's not
Right.
you know.
No, I'm going big tomorrow, Chris. You've inspired me. We're going to do low block,
You
third
got
man
that
runs,
big
all that sort of.
big cake with fireworks on it.
Yeah, we're going for it tomorrow. Now I'm going to ask you these ones because we're going to wrap it up. But I just wanted to ask you, like, just give you a kind of quick fire, short answer, or best you can. What are your thoughts on the kicking rule? That was one of a listener wanted to know what your thoughts on in the what do you think of the kicking rule?
I think speed of the game is one thing. They put it in and play and kick. I definitely don't think after a certain age group it should happen because they can't. One of the things, kids can't throw the ball. They can't do throw-ins, can they? So
No, foul throws all the time.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a point, maybe under 12, where throw-ins kids need to learn how to throw it. So I think it should be age related. They tried it at professional level once. I think it was one of the leagues. Oh no, it was in America, where anything in the opposite half, you could kick it. So it was almost like free kicks all the time through the game, which I think is a bit gimmicky in my opinion.
Well, I mean, we see it in our football. It's not you think kids are going to put it on. You think teams will put the ball on the floor and take it quickly, but actually what happens is the coach tells them all to get in the box and some kid wallops it into the box. That's actually what happens.
Yeah. So that's counterproductive for what the intention was. I mean, what if they said,
exactly,
right, you can only side foot it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that would be a good adaptation. And then obviously 3v3 coming in, Chris. What do you think about that? 3v3 is coming in from under sevens, and they play that, I think, for 1 year before going into five-a-side.
I think it's a good idea as regards touches on the ball. I think that's a good idea. 3v3 is actually quite physically demanding. So as much as people want to say, well, they'll get loads of touchings, but is it going to be time related? Is it going to be based on how people, perceive the kids to be coping? I think that's important. I definitely think under sevens shouldn't be playing more than 4v4 because people don't touch the ball.
Just before we go, my youngest is just starting 3v3, and I've watched him play a little bit of it. The one big problem I'd say is that if you don't have the inflatable sort of the inflatable things around the pitch, the ball is off the pitch all of the time. So you spend the whole time running to get the ball, and you kind of in theory like, oh, each kid's touching it. They're not, because you're spending the whole time getting the ball. So that was the one practical sort of I was like, this isn't working. They're not touching the ball.
No, I agree with you. They should have those arenas. If they can have an inflatable arena, I think that would that actually might be an idea for a business.
You've heard it here first. Chris Ramsey's inflatable arenas.
No, but it's true though. You could go and set a tournament up, maybe 4 or 5 pitches, and just do it. And because like you said, if they're not skilled, you're just running off the pitch.
Yeah, that was what I found when watching it. It was very frustrating to watch because they just. And also what would happen is the same kid would get the ball, kick it, then it goes off, and then none of the other kids are touching it, and they're all waiting around, and the same sort of thing happens at the other end. So, yeah, it was a bit frustrating. But, Chris, I've absolutely loved this conversation. I've learned a ton. I think loads of coaches are going to get plenty from it, so I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely no problem. Anyone wants to reach out to me if they can, and I'm always happy to do Q&As for people, or small feet. No,
Fantastic.
I don't get yeah, for large feet. No, I've always had to speak through those for people when I get the time. But listen, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It's always good coming on with you guys.
Tough, man.
You do it good for the game.
Chris.
Right. So hopefully we'll speak again soon. You know where I am.
If there's one thing to take away from this episode, it's this. Don't make it about you. It's about the kids, their experience, their confidence, and their love for the game. Learn from what Chris has shared, his experience, his knowledge, and his perspective, and take it back into your own clubs. Whether you're a coach on the grass or a parent on the sidelines, you've got a huge role to play in your child's journey. So go out there, be present, be supportive, and keep getting better. And don't get too worked up and emotional and make it all about you, because at the end of the day, it's only kids football. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And if you want to check out our previous episodes, just click here.